Apostle is directed by Gareth Evans. It stars Dan Stevens, Michael Sheen, and Paul Higgins. Apostle is an original Netflix film that came out on Friday. So basically what the story is, a woman gets kidnapped by a religious cult. So her brother decides to travel to this isolated island so he can try and rescue her. As he goes there, you start seeing how the cult is really like, their lifestyle, as well as secrets that start to unravel, and you also get to learn about new characters and all that kind of good stuff. So this movie is directed by Gareth Evans. Like I said, he directed The Raid and The Raid 2, some of my favorite action films ever, especially the second one. I think it's one of the best, not only one of the best sequels, but one of the best action movies ever made, if I'm being honest. And he also did a short horror film in VHS too, and that short film is actually awesome. It's insane and gory in all the right ways. So when I found out he was doing a film that was going to be starring Stan Stevens and with a concept like this, I was definitely interested. So I had some kind of high hopes. And in all honesty, I left kind of conflicted with what I really thought about this movie, because I will say this is not a bad movie by any means. There is things about it that are undeniably good that prevent it from being a terrible film. But from one thing I liked, there was another thing I disliked. So I left kind of conflicted and not really sure how to feel as I was watching the movie. But let's review it and let's talk about what I liked and what I disliked and all that kind of good stuff. First thing I did like is the performances. I thought everyone in the cast did a very good job. Dan Stevens, he's a character that you do root for, you sympathize with him. There is some sort of mystery behind him that you get introduced to that, a lot of people thought he was dead, and there is some baggage that he's carrying. So as the movie goes on, I wouldn't say you get to relate to him, but you do sympathize with him, and you do want him to rescue his sister because, something really terrible happened. She was unexpectedly disappeared, unexpectedly kidnapped, and, just the situation is just horrible. So you definitely get to, understand where he's coming from, and you want him to succeed. So I thought Dan Stevens did a very good job. Martin Sheen, I thought he was great too. He does play a big factor in this cult. He's one of the leaders, and you can tell he's having fun with the role. I bought him as this like crazy ass guy who just wanted to do things in a certain way. And he has a couple of scenes that do stand out, so I thought he was very good. As far as other characters go, they're pretty good too. The acting is not really a problem, and only some characters are interesting, while others are not so much. But in terms of performances, good. Directing is also very good too. I mean, there are some shots that are pretty nice to look at. I mean, it's a very well shot film. Like there are a couple of wide takes of just how the location looks like, and it's really well done. The island, I don't know if you really want to visit that island because, it has crazy people in it, but the location is very nice. This movie takes place in the early 1900s, and it does look like it takes place in that time, with the production and how the movie's filmed. Well, not necessarily how the movie is filmed, but yeah, I guess the production and the scenery, it does add to like that early 1900 feel, and the way they talk too. So it is well in that department. And as a horror film, it is effective, I think. I mean, it's not necessarily scary, but there is a lot of tension building. There's a very, very effective scene in the middle of the movie, which I don't want to spoil, but it is a standout. And I believe if you do watch it, you'll know what I'm talking about. It involves him trying to hide and he encounters something. I thought that sequence was very well done. And there are aspects that I enjoyed about it. There is a lot of blood and violence, which is not surprising considering the Raid films and that short horror film that he did for VHS2, the director. But it never feels like it's just gory just for the sake of being gory. It's like there's a point to the violence. It's suited right, if that makes sense. You watch it and you're never thinking, oh, this is just graphic for the sake of being graphic. Like, no, it actually it suits well with each scene that's going on. It's not like, oh, let's just make gore to shock the audience or anything. It's used in a good way. So I think Gareth Evans knows how to do that very well. As far as my problems, though, okay, so this movie is 2 hours and 10 minutes long, and you really do feel the runtime. At least I did. Yeah, there are some entertaining scenes, but man, I got to tell you. So this movie is a slow burn, okay? And at first I was digging it. I was like, okay, so the pacing is not bad, but so far I'm invested. but I felt like it kept going on and on and on. And at one point, it kind of felt like a chore to sit through, which is really surprising for me to say because I love The Raid 2, and that movie is longer than this movie. That is The Raid 2 is 2.5 hours, and it's one of the fastest 2.5 hours I've ever, sat in a theater or just watched at my house. But you watch this, and you can't help but think, man, it's like he's trying to stretch the story to be 2 hours and 10 minutes, and it didn't have to be. Some of the pacing just gets sluggish, and there are just some scenes which I was not a fan of. The ending in particular, I just didn't like it. I might be in a minority when I say that, but the ending, it was predictable, and I don't know, I didn't dig it. And there is a storyline. I don't want to say it's pointless because it does, it does contribute to the story later on, but I just didn't care for it. It involves these two characters, and I don't want to get into it, but they have a love thing, and then something happens, and it just, I don't know. I felt like if you had just cut that out of the movie, it probably would have made the movie shorter and whatnot. See, the thing is, this is a movie. I was thinking about it after I was watching it because The Raid and The Raid 2 are films I can watch again and again. And I don't mean to compare them to Apostle because I understand that they're very different movies, but after I finished watching it, I was thinking to myself, yeah, there's some good cinematography. There's some good scenes of violence. Some graphic scenes are, well done. And there are some entertaining aspects and some very good acting. But because of the pacing and you, while it is a good movie, I mean, while it's like an okay movie, you can see some similarities to other movies that has happened in the past. So you could just watch better films in this. I thought to myself, I don't think I have the need to ever rewatch this again. I don't think it's a bad film at all. I think it's okay at best. It is underwhelming though, and a little disappointing in that factor because you expect from the guy who directed The Raid 2 to have an awesome horror film that could really work well. And I just felt like it was too long, and there were just some scenes I weren't a fan of that weren't executed as well. It's just very conflicting because there are some things I like, and there's just some things I didn't. And I don't know. I felt like if it had just done some of more things right and kept that consistency, this probably would have been a great horror film. But ultimately, I ended up thinking it was just okay. So I'm going to give Apostle a B minus. I don't think it's a bad film at all. I would recommend seeing it if you're interested to see what the director of The Raid has to offer. Chances are you might like this movie more than I did. I didn't hate it, but I just thought it was okay at best and kind of forgettable. I watched this movie on Monday night, and it's Wednesday, and I can barely remember it. So that should say something. So a B minus is what I'm going to give it. It's okay. You have Netflix and you want to watch it, by all means, go ahead and form your opinion on it. Like I said, you might like it more than I do. So yeah. So that's my review of Apostle. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And until next time, guys, I will be reviewing Halloween. I'm not sure what day yet, but I do plan on seeing it this weekend. So stay tuned for that. All right, guys. So until next time, I'm Diego Coya. Have a good one. See you next time. Bye.